And with me today is Amanda Delgado, one of our most recent graduates in the program. And Amanda is not just a holistic pet health coach, but she's also a functional diagnostic nutrition graduate as well. So, welcome. And we're having a few little technical difficulties. We can't quite get connected to the page we're looking at, um, but we'll figure all this stuff out and go from there. So you, I mean, the one of the videos I saw when you were just starting the course, I was just absolutely floored because your passion and your desire to help people out is just amazing. So can you tell us a little bit about how you got into this and why you were what you were looking for, all of that good stuff?
Okay. Well, I think like most people, I was looking for holistic nutrition on the people side because I was having some health issues and modern medicine wasn't giving me the answers that I needed. So I started doing a deep dive for myself on how I could heal myself naturally. And while I was learning all about, eating properly and exercising and take time to care for myself, it kind of dawned on me. I had one of those aha moments one day when I was feeding my dogs because I have two. I have two beautiful dogs. I have a three-year-old golden retriever and a 6-year-old lab mix. And of course, like every other pet parent out there, I was feeding them kibble. And one day I had the bowls in my hand and they were at my feet, raring to go for the food. And I just kind of had one of those, I've completely changed how I eat.
Yeah,
What about them?
right
And that's
on.
kind of how it all started.
Isn't that the way? And it's the same
Yeah.
thing, I think all of us um, when we're in the midst of trying to sort things out for ourselves, we have that moment of, "Wait, I'm getting better. Why am I feeding this to my dog again?" So,
Yeah.
right on. And so what have you seen since you've started doing that?
Uh,
Feeding your pets differently, I should
so
say.
on their journey, we first started out feeding raw because I heard and I read that that was the way to go. It's biologically appropriate for them. So I slowly transitioned them to raw, and I did see improvement in their overall health, but I still had challenges getting them to eat it. They weren't as thrilled to eat the raw as I thought they were going to be. And it wasn't until I actually warmed it up a little bit that they started to really show, yes, I like it. So I thought, if they're not liking the raw, what other options are there? And that's where, again, did my research and I thought, okay, we could actually cook their food. But in terms of their health, their energy levels have increased, their personalities have changed. They're much more puppy-like, especially my 6-year-old. And she's now more talkative, she's more engaged. Their coat is so luxurious now. Before I found
That's
it kind of dry and coarse, and now I just love rubbing my hands through them. Yeah.
that is amazing. So you really saw a huge change because that's kind of my frustration with my most of my online holistic colleagues are it's like raw, 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 raw is the only way. But you're actually finding that, yeah, there's other stuff going on with food that may be a better option for many, many pets and many people. That's great.
Yeah. No, they I mean, I still feed them raw treats. Like I'll give them, raw duck feet and stuff like that because that's a nice treat to have every once in a while, and they do like those. But when it came to their actual meal and making those raw meals, with the raw liver and the raw organs and all that, they didn't like it. They
Not so
just picked
much.
No, they picked at it. They would move it to certain parts of the house. They would
Wow.
Yeah, no, they just had inc no interest in eating it. But I'll tell you this, Dr. Ruth, the first day I made my original Crock Pet Diet for them. They came running into the kitchen when I opened up the lid off the slow cooker.
Wow.
And oh yeah, absolutely. I was shocked because I thought, okay, here's another thing. We're going to take our time slowly introducing it to them. They came running in. As soon as they opened up the lid, they sat there kind of like, oh, what's this new scent we're smelling? And yeah, of course I had to let it cool before they could try it. But they devoured it. There was no transition time.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And no tummy upset, no issues whatsoever.
No, no.
Fantastic. I love hearing that. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
So so that's kind of crazy. I mean, you know, we we do our research and we come up with one set of answers, but then lo and behold, there's others if you keep digging. So that's
Mm-hmm.
amazing. So since you've been working through this, I mean, it sounds like what you've seen is that you're for your own pets, you found that they really had a massive shift in their own health. But have you been working with some clients and had some shifts and changes that you've seen for their pets?
So the clients that I had been working with, none of them had pets. Uh, For I'm not quite sure why, but none of them really
Right on.
had pets. But I also work part-time at a supplement warehouse, and they have a small pet section there. And whenever I went over there to help, the customers with their inquiries about the products, I always talk to them, what are you feeding your pets? That kind of thing. And I was actually surprised at the number of pet parents who said, I've started cooking their meals for them. And
Yeah.
I'd be like, so what difference have you seen? And they're all like, their energy levels are better. A lot of people have noticed their coats. They're much more softer, um, and less skin issues. That seems to be a number one complaint I'm finding from pet parents that I work with in the store is their skin issues, and less digestive problems as well.
Makes total sense. Makes total sense
Hmm.
because that's part of the whole thing with the cooked diet is that we're presenting the food sort of pre-digested so that it's easier for pets to digest. And a lot of people that have been doing raw for a long time will say this about their pets as they get older, that they notice they have to start cooking um,
Hmm.
to make it easier for them to digest and to actually absorb everything. So that's an interesting thing to me, but it's kind of it's like okay,
Yeah,
we'll just walk through that. So I
yeah.
think we've got. I'm going to share screen. We've got a couple of questions over here in our holistic pet health group. Um, Barbara is asking about Birdie. So she's been super picky on her food, and that her poop is kind of yellowish on the outside. So she had some abnormal liver values evidently, and the vet wants to do an ultrasound, which would be the next step, but it is
Hmm.
$600. Um, and I think Orzalve is probably a homeopathic um, remedy. So maybe, ooh, so it sounds like she had an exterminator come in, and three of her pets got ill. So
Ooh.
yeah, yuck. So, and what's interesting is that so much of what I teach and have learned really came over from the human side. So, if this was a person, what might you suggest to her to start thinking about in terms of a potential uh, pesticide exposure
Hmm.
creating an issue? Yeah,
Well, the first thing we'd want to do, of course, is do a good detoxification of the pet. Work in some possibly milk thistle, um, just to help remove any of the toxins that they may have accumulated from the exterminator. Um, is she feeding them? I can't. Is she feeding them cooked?
I
I presume she
think
is.
actually I'm not sure what's going on. I think Paris jumped in a little bit. which is great. When another one of our students, so she doesn't really say what she was feeding, and unfortunately, kitties can be notoriously difficult to convince
Mhm.
to eat something else. So that's absolutely an important thing. If Birdie's eating just plain old kibble, one of the best things to do is to try to at least switch to some sort of canned food, just because that
Mhm.
increased moisture will help things start to flush through the system. What else do you? And I think milk thistle is an excellent solution or suggestion. That's something that most cats will tolerate, and you can
Mhm.
kind of hide that in sardines or something else super delicious to get it down. Most of the over the counter milk thistle is like 175 milligrams, so a quarter capsule a couple of times a day would be a good start. So
Mhm.
what else might you think of for poor Birdie?
Well, I see Birdie here, like, laying on this carpet. I'm not quite sure what kind of cleaning she may have done after the exterminators have left, so she might wanna look at doing a bit of cleaning, but using clean, natural products to help remove any of the residue that's left. And making sure that, possibly washing her paws, in a natural solution to remove any of those, residue that's left from whatever product they may have
What
used.
exactly. Yeah, so
Yeah.
and vinegar is a great product to use for cleaning. There's Bactroban, which is a uh, actually an enzymatic solution, microbial solution to help kind of break things up. And
Mhm.
then um, the other thing, if Birdie is easy to get things into, some sort of adsorbent to help suck up any of the pesticides that are floating around in the GI tract. So, activated charcoal is a really simple one, and often that can be found over the counter. So that
Mhm.
may be helpful too. So, poor Birdie, Barbara. I hope that she gets better and that you've reached out to Paris and um, have the ability to get some help that way. Let's see. And there's Lori sharing a little success story about Blue the Dalmatian, one of our other students and colleagues now. So she that is awesome. So she actually helped Blue get rid of those bladder stones, which is fantastic.
Awesome.
Um, so that's wonderful. Uh, Getting lots of folks coming in here, and Peanut the hamster hanging out. So let's see. And then we've got some other good stuff from Crystal about when to spay and neuter.
Mhm.
Um, and uh, yep, sorry to hear that, Michael. Yeah,
Oh,
that's a tough one.
that is.
Yeah. And let's see. And I think that may be it for questions in here for the moment. Um, oh, so Allison is asking about her dog who is heartworm positive, and they're doing a slow kill method. Um, and this may not be something you're so familiar with since you're in Canada, but Allison, it can take um, up to a year, really, for all of the antigen tests to go away. So if there's no health issues, you might consider waiting on the melarsoline injections. It is an arsenical compound, and it's one of those deals where um, if if that's something that you find that your pup's already Annie is starting to have some respiratory issues or other problems, we can you can do it and then start to do some other things after the treatment, like we mentioned earlier, as far as detoxing from the melarsoline. So that would be things like adsorbents to help catch everything, and then um, supplements like alpha lipoic acid and liposomal glutathione to help the body process all of this stuff out. Yeah. So we've got, I would check that out, Allison. And then I think I love that picture too. And poor Ariel. And I think we talked about this one a little bit. The last one, the last live we did. So hope Ariel is doing a little bit better, and that she's gotten a bit more stable. Okay, so I think that's all of the questions we've got in the group here for the moment. I'm going to shut that part off, and we're back sort of looking at each other. So one of the oh, come here. I'm sorry. Nahio has to come up and help too. So one of the other things we can, and folks, if you're watching this live, you are certainly welcome to drop questions in the chat here. We're able to answer them as we go. And apologies for the technical difficulties. This didn't get set into the right group. And so Charity's asking, does activated charcoal pull the supplements and beneficial products being given? And it can, certainly, Charity. So ideally you would give this at least 2 hours away from any other supplementation that you're using as well, which can get a little tough because it is adsorbent. It will suck up all the evil spirits. So is there a binder or adsorbent that you've used on the human side that you really liked working with, Amanda?
My go-to is usually activated charcoal. That's the number one I recommend. Yeah. It's one of the easier ones to find in supplement stores here in Canada.
And US as well, and actually everywhere. So that's a good one. There's a Polypet makes a nice product that's fulvic acid and humic acid. And I think it's supposed to be less problematic as far as kind of being a little bit constipating potentially. But it's still, because we're using an adsorbent and absorbent, you would want to move it away from the food itself. Right on. And with your pups, how do you get them out there, get them exercising and kind of keep them stimulated and happy?
Oh, I have no problems doing that. They are very active. And it's funny because both of them have different interests. So my 6-year-old lab mix, she's got a great sense of smell. So I got her doing scent training, and she loves being chased. While my retriever, of course, likes to retrieve things. He loves swimming, and he also does rock diving. So we got him out of the lake as often as we can.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So, and he can actually find the one you threw in, or he just sort of gets a suitable looking replacement?
So we actually have these rocks that are meant for diving. And so he's aware of it. And so you throw it out, and then he will dive down, grab it, and bring it back. Yeah.
That's crazy. That's great stuff.
Yeah.
Cool. So when you started working on the FDN side and working through your own, Hyos is ready to roll, working through your own health challenges, how did you start in? Because it's like, okay, I've got this problem and here's the list of 20 things to do. How did you start incorporating that into your own daily practice, and how would you suggest a pet parent go about doing that?
Well, for the pets, I think the simplest and the most easily retained one would be the food sensitivity test. A lot of the other tests that we learned at FDN are not, or they haven't been, I shouldn't say, they're not meant for dogs, but they haven't been really used on dogs. So I have done a couple of tests on my dogs from the FDN program. Like I've checked the cortisol levels, I've done their hormone levels, that kind of thing. But again, I was kind of doing it blindly because there's no numbers, there's no range for me to compare it to.
Right
But
on.
the food sensitivity test, absolutely, and then also the GI test as well, I found very beneficial for the dog. So again, those two they can find easily online for pets. There's lots of companies out there that offer them now for pets. So those are one of the two that I would recommend doing.
Yeah. Have you used the innovative Pet Lab GI test? Are you
Yes,
familiar
that one.
with that company? Yeah,
Yeah.
I think they're sort of the best in market at this point. But they do offer tests that will help us understand if there is inflammation present, if there's
Hmm.
leaky gut, all of the stuff that really can be critical to fix before you can fix the entire health picture.
Yeah.
So right on. Yeah, that's interesting. So when you ran those hormone panels, what did you find? And are your dogs intact or are they spayed and neutered?
So my 6-year-old, because she is a rescue, that was an arrangement I had with the organization. She had to have been fixed, but my male retriever is still intact. So the hormone levels for both of them are completely different.
Right on.
Um, yeah. So her estrogen levels were really low, but her luteinizing hormones were high. So I'm
Astronomical?
yeah. So I'm working on bringing those down holistically. And then with his is balanced because he's still intact. Everything
Right.
looks good for him. Yeah.
Cool. So what are you doing to work on bringing down the luteinizing hormone?
Um, I'm just, diet, um, making sure she's getting not enough, reducing her stress levels. Now, because she is 6, she also is, unfortunately, she's tested positive for Lyme as well. So we've
Ah,
got that in the mix as well. So I've just been playing around with her food, looking at some holistic things to do, like adding some herbs in that are known to help balance hormones.
right
So
on. Cool.
yeah.
And the reason this is so important is that there's some research out of from Dr. Michelle Kunzler out of Oregon State University at Corvallis Veterinary School, linking elevated luteinizing hormone levels with luteinizing hormone receptors on tissues that shouldn't have them. And so
Yes.
these LH, luteinizing hormone levels, LH levels, can be 20 to 30 times normal. And what's happening is the receptors are showing up in the brain, on the adrenal glands, in the joints, in the bones, in the gut. Kind of anywhere you can think of where we have chronic disease issues, there are receptors for this hormone. And so the thought is that early spaying and neutering is actually what's contributing more to the chronic health epidemic in pets than anything else. Not to diminish the effect of glyphosate and all of the stuff that's out there in the environment, but one of the things we can do is help to improve liver function, and we can do that with food, lots of fiber, foods that will help support liver function, um, things like milk thistle, liposomal glutathione that will help flush the liver out and aid it in getting rid of toxins, and then supporting normal what's left of the endocrine system. So I've used standard processes products, which unfortunately are not available to you in
No.
Canada. But some of the other herbs, would you be using things like evening primrose or chasteberry or
Yeah. Yeah. So I've used chasteberry. I've used again evening primrose oil, black cohosh, those kinds of things, just to try and see if that'll help bring those levels down.
cool? And are you starting to see some success with that?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. I would love to hear more about that. I would love for you to write that up so we can get that to the other coaches and get
Hmm.
them out there using these techniques as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'd be happy to.
That'd be super cool.
Because that was one of my
That
biggest fears. Sorry, Dr. Ruth. That was one of my
no,
biggest
no.
fears when I, because I hemmed and hawed. I even looked at going to my lawyer to see if there's a way that I could go around not having her fixed, because that, again, that was one of my fears, but unfortunately that was an agreement we had signed and I had to have it done. So yeah.
Yeah, it just it is what it is. And that's the
Yeah.
thing. I mean, so many pets are already spayed and neutered. It's like this is not a death knell, but you do need to start working on this to help support our pets more efficiently, more effectively.
Hmm.
And I think this is going to be really the key to keeping uh, these massive, horrible cancers and other really awful diseases at bay as best we can for these guys. Cool. So uh, I think I had a few more questions, but I think we've actually covered the majority of them. So one of the things I did want to ask you, if you were reconsidering going into this program again, would you have any hesitations knowing what you know now?
No, not at all. No, I've thoroughly enjoyed my time. I learned, even though I do have a holistic nutrition background, I still learned lots about how the nutrition and how, you know, the environmental factors and just everything, how it's all connected and how it actually works on a dog or or a cat. So again, it was a bit of a refresher, but there was also a lot of new things as well for me too.
Right on, cool. So Delora is saying she's got a test with low secretory IgA and borderline zonulin. So leaky gut stuff going on there. So what could we think about for helping poor Hazel out?
IgA and borderline zonulin. Okay. Again, if she's not already on a good probiotic, absolutely do a good probiotic, but even possibly adding some L-glutamine to help strengthen the muscles that line her digestive tract. So she's preventing that leaky gut from happening. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, because that'll definitely help seal over from the epithelial layers on back. And
Hmm.
then I guess some of the other things we might suggest would be um, using uh, slippery elm to some degree to help add a little bit more mucin layer in there, because sometimes that's part of the problem. And then if she's been on a probiotic, maybe consider switching it up, or consider
Hmm.
something like Saccharomyces boulardii, which is actually a yeasty beastie, but
Hmm.
it's it's well known to help sort of recalibrate the gut flora. And then when you add a different probiotic in, then it's able to do its job a little bit more efficiently.
Hmm.
So I hope that is helpful. And then again, if you're not already cooking or using a lot of fiber to help support the GI tract and the microbiome there, that's a great idea too. Cool. And you are welcome. Great. Cool. Well, y'all, were apologies again for the technical difficulties. And hopefully we'll get things straightened out shortly. But if you want to reach out to Amanda and get some help for your pet, especially all those folks up there in Canada, reach out, as my wife likes to say, but she likes to irritate people with lots of malapropisms. But reach out to Amanda; she can help you out. Um, she has a breadth of knowledge in terms of both helping pets and humans and kind of getting the whole household well together. So wonderful to spend some time with you, and we'll see you next time. So, for those of you that have any interest in learning more about being a holistic pet health coach, um, I'll drop this in here too, if I can do this straight up. Uh, there we go. Check that out, drop your information in, and we'll get you some more help. And we'll be working on solving these technical difficulties. We are looking at moving all of our Facebook groups into a more private platform because, unfortunately, the hackers out there are really smarter than we are at breaking down all sorts of security. And so this way we'll be able to support you more efficiently. You will have no worry about your private information disappearing into Facebook landia in the hands of a hacker. So keep watching our groups for more information about that. We anticipate being able to make that switch over by mid-September. That's what we've got for now. Thank you guys. Talk soon. Keep the questions coming.